Never mind, Jeff, you're good. Still
Call this meeting of the county board of supervisors to order. We'll rise for a moment of silent prayer and the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all.
Have you taken roll call? Oh, Gallatin.
Mary, Krebs, Mary, and Schulteis are absent. Gallus is as well.
Okay,
Krebs, Mary, and Schulteis are absent.
Or excused, sorry.
Excused. Okay.
Gallus, I guess the music would be absent.
okay, we have a quorum. This agenda was posted by the clerk's office according to all the appropriate rules. So we'll move to the public hearing.
The County Board of Washington County will conduct a public hearing on June 30th, 2022 at 5 p.m. regarding its proposed application to the Community Development Block Grant COVID CDBG-CV program. The public is invited to attend to learn about the CDBG program to help identify additional community development needs and to comment on the proposed Family Promise expansion project to be included in the CDBG application. This is published on June 15th, 2022 in the West Bend Daily News.
Okay, so the public hearing is open. I'll caution everyone that once the public hearing is closed, we're going to keep the audio going rather than shut it down and then start it up again for our other board meeting following this. So be advised. So identification of total potential funds.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tammy Hampton. I'm a funding specialist with Kunkel Engineering. We have offices here in West Bend and City Hall and also in Beaver Dam. Our firm has been retained to assist Washington County in addition with Family Promise for preparing a CDBG COVID application. And the purpose of tonight's hearing, as Ashley already stated, is to provide an opportunity for residents and stakeholders to give input about this project and any other community development needs the county might have that CDBG can assist with. The total potential funds for this project are $2 million. There are no matching funds required, although this project is over the $2 million mark. And so Family Promise will be required to provide any funds over the $2 million funds being provided by CDBG. Any questions I can answer about the potential funds that are available? They are all grant dollars.
No county dollars.
All right. Eligible CDBG activities. The requirement to be eligible for a COVID grant is any project that prevents, prepares for, or responds to the coronavirus epidemic. The coronavirus has directly affected many of us, including the homeless population. The grant is limited to events after January 21st, 2020. So anything, any project that was affected by Corona after January 21st, 2020 is eligible for this $2 million funding. We have to meet a national objective with CDBG for this type of project. That's either low to moderate income. We have to benefit at least 51% low to moderate income individuals, or there has to be an urgent local need. And actually, I would consider this both. Your homeless population needs this service urgently. With that, if there's no questions about the eligible activities, I would defer to Hannah from Family Promise, where she can present the community development needs.
Anyone, questions, comments?
And if I could, just before Hannah comes up, Does the board mind if we go out of order where we have an opportunity for the public to identify community development needs? If I could postpone that till the very end of this hearing,
That's
and
fine.
we'll allow Hannah and then Wendy to present their information.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Ken, my question is about, you said the whole project is over 2 million? The CDBG block grant would just be 2 million. How much over is it, and where do you expect to get those funds from?
Sure. So right now our project budget is estimated to be $3 million. And approximately 2.5 of that is construction. The additional 500,000 is for professional services, an environmental review, it'd be for architectural fees, our fees for grant administration. So that's where the additional 500,000 comes in. But the construction is about, right now it's $2,447,500.
Okay. How do you expect to fund that additional expense, or do you already have funding for it?
Family Promise has, and I'll let them expand on it more, but they have provided a bank statement and a resolution from their board committing $1 million from funds they already have in the bank. And they're also pursuing a line of credit that they can use for additional funds for any contingencies, furniture, fixtures, things that CDBG will not cover as part of the grant program. But I can defer to Hannah and Wendy to explain a little bit more about that. But they do have the funds committed, which is required by CDBG. They want to see that, not that you're just saying, well, we'll come up with that money, but that it is committed and in hand before they will fund a project, to make sure that it doesn't, stop midway and now where are the remaining funds coming from? So it is secured.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Hannah Conforti. I'm the program manager for Family Promise of Washington County. I'm not sure if you are aware, but Family Promise obviously provides homeless services to Washington County residents. We actually have two different shelter locations. We have our Carl's Place location, which serves single females and males, and then we have our Promise Center location that serves families. Our Promise Center location is operated out of a 130-year-old building. This building has ongoing issues with maintenance and overall efficiency. These issues cause our agency to spend additional time and funding on repairs and upkeep that we would much rather spend on serving our clients that are in need of our services. So since the onset of the pandemic, Family Promise has seen a huge increase in homeless services for both families and singles. For example, our emergency shelter program, in 2019, we served 95 people. In 2020, we served 226. So a massive increase just as the onset of the pandemic. And then in 2021, we served 178. So that number actually went down just a little bit just because of the eviction moratorium keeping people in their housing. And then 2022, the year-to-date number so far is 108 people being served in emergency shelter. That number, we're on track to serve around the 200 by the end of the year. In our motel voucher program, so that's our non-congregate shelter program, in 2019, we only served 8 people. In 2020, we served 176. So a massive increase due to COVID. And then also in 2021, we saw the same trend of 77 people only being served. And then in 2020, year to date so far, we've already served 78. So we see that number going back up with obviously the spikes in COVID. The pandemic has directly affected the homeless population in Washington County. People experiencing homelessness are uniquely vulnerable to the COVID-19 because of them not having a safe place to isolate and social distance. They rely on our facilities like Promise Center and Carl's Place as their safe place during the pandemic. We have stayed open during the entirety of the pandemic. So people have utilized our services since March of 2020. Without this funding, Family Promise will continue to have ongoing issues with the Promise Center shelter, causing us to spend additional time, resources, and funds on repairs, maintenance, and upkeep rather than spending that time and energy on serving clients in need of our services. So we do wish to expand our Carl's Place location to make it one building and become a true hub for homeless services in Washington County. And we hope to make that serve our families in a healthy and safe environment. Does anybody have any questions about the need? If not, I can hand it over to Wendy to discuss the scope of work.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Wendy Heather, and I am the past president of the Board of Directors. And on the building committee, I've been working closely with Lori Prescott on this project. So we do have two spots in mind for the expansion. One would be going north of the existing Family Promise building, and that would be into the county, like a cornfield that the county has back there. And the second one is going west, which cuts into a parking lot that houses trucks from West Bend Transit. And we're working on both of those, and we're planning to have that situation handled by next week and have the spot picked out so that we can continue to move forward. There'll be meetings scheduled and discussions to finish it up. As far as the scope of work, what we're looking to add are 9 emergency shelter bedrooms, and those consist of 2 beds per unit, and that way families that are coming in for 30 days or a week or 2 weeks, they'll have spaces to go. And we can we can adjust those bedrooms to house more if we need to. We try to put doors that interlock and things like that we work with to make it more efficient, and that's something else that we're going to be working with the architects. It also will consist of a community shelter, and in the community shelter, there's a kitchen, 2 bathrooms, 2 laundry rooms, and a larger living area that has for the kids and things that they can watch TV and do things like that. There's activities, they can actually have a room to go to. And we'll have adjoining doors on that also, because we want to be able to get as many people in and house families as we can go. We're also looking to add 2 3-bedroom units for families that are going to stay for longer periods of time. And with that, what we're trying to do also is work with, when we have our architect, we'll work with adjoining those rooms like a hotel does. So if we have a very large family, we can open it up and have more rooms available. If we have small families, we can adjust that way also. So there's all kinds of things going on that way, but we really feel by doing this, we'll be able to serve more families, and we'll be able to house them all in one big area so that when we have the services that we need to provide them, we can provide it all there. And I think that's about all that I have, unless you have questions for me on that, on the scope of work.
You mentioned something about additional land.
Yes.
You're not expanding the parcel that the county gave you several years ago?
It would be difficult to get anything in that because of the layout. So we've already discussed with the county to add the land to put this new area on.
And if I can just add, right now we're working with, the architect has not been secured for this project. The timeliness of this is that the application needs to be submitted by tomorrow, and we need to have this public hearing and these resolutions passed to be able to apply for the grant. We're still working with Family Promise and the architect to determine where the footprint will be, and if additional land will be required, we will bring that request for acquisition forward to the next county board meeting, and then you can make that decision then.
And we also plan to have that resolved next week. We've called a special board meeting also so that we can discuss and get votes and get this wrapped up next week also.
Your board?
Yes, our board.
You mentioned there's 2 properties. Are we only talking about the one that's right over here, or would this project also encompass the other property that you said was older that needed a lot of work?
No, it would just be in addition to Carl's Place, which is the one on Water Street.
Okay.
And eventually then that building would be gone.
Okay,
Yes.
that's what you're working towards, just one
Yes,
facility?
exactly. Yeah, yes, and then everybody can be housed in one area.
Anyone else?
Yes, I have a question. So your clients, and I'm sorry, I'm unfamiliar with your organization, but I wanted to ask, do you know, the people that are staying with you, you have their names and their, they're people, that they're identifiable,
Yes.
So they're.
Yes, Hannah can speak to that. But
Yes, and, for the safety of the people in the neighborhood, just so that everybody understands, and I guess I'm asking if we're serving, both US citizens and non-US citizens. That's a simple question.
No, only US citizens are who we're serving. We go through extensive background checks prior to them actually being even assessed for our shelter program. We don't accept any sex offenders, and then they can't have any violent crimes within the last 5 years. So.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You're welcome, thank you.
Family Promise is a big part of the church I go to. They used to utilize the parishes in West Bend.
Yeah, so actually at the onset of COVID, churches kind of closed their doors, which is kind of the onset of like why we have this ongoing issue. We used to have the support network of the churches. The families would go there during the week. When they closed their doors, we kind of created our makeshift shelter at our Promise Center location. So right now it's not the ideal situation, we have them, with partition walls, we make it work the best we can. But we really would like to be able to expand and make it a nice living space for them. The churches do definitely still support us. They drop off meals every week. They are so gracious. And that's a huge support we hope to continue. So, yeah.
Thank you.
This is only to serve Washington County residents? There
Correct.
wouldn't be any situation where you'd be transporting people from other counties?
Nope, you need to be a Washington County resident. You have to have a tie to Washington County. So that might mean your kids are in school at Washington County, are employed here, you have, you're on probation here. Something that ties you to Washington County, we're very strict on that. If the first hotline call that we take from them, that's the question we ask. Yeah.
What is the average duration of a stay for singles or families?
So it's usually about 30 to 60 days. Obviously, it can go more than that, given the situation. Some people have a lot more barriers that they have to work through. Some people stay a lot less, just a couple days. But we usually say around 30 to 60 days, sometimes into that 90-day range.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do most people have some sort of a plan for getting out
Yes.
with them or whatever?
So actually, that's something that we address immediately upon intake. So they go through their assessment, and the day that they move in, they meet with a case manager to go over an action plan. They set their goals of what they would like to accomplish during their time here. That could be gain employment, get a car, get sober. So those are all the case manager meets with them on a weekly basis, and more so if needed. They work through those goals every single week to try to get through to meet those goals. And then obviously that's the goal, to get into permanent housing and to get back on their feet.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Oh, and sorry, I'll just add. And then we also have, our transitional housing, we also have on site. Those are for clients that have met their goals, but have significant barriers like evictions, or they have a bad credit score or something. So we can actually have them on site in our apartments. Those are like our smaller apartments. They're actually really beautiful, and they're a great opportunity. And they can stay there for a year long. It helps them build their rental history. They can continue to save during that time in the program. So it's an amazing opportunity.
Supervisor Bossert.
Yeah, so when we originally agreed to build Carl's Place 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I think the idea then was that there wouldn't be any additional land that would be dedicated. So any expansion would be on the existing parcel. So right now it's a one-story building. Is there a willingness to look at building up instead of growing outward?
We did discuss that, but we don't think the footings will support it because it was built as a one-story. But that question has come up in many of our discussions.
Okay, and
Yes.
is that something, and I'm not a construction guy, so I don't know a lot about footings. Is that something that can be shored up so it would support it, or is that tearing it down?
It didn't sound like it, because every time we did bring it up, when we were in discussion, it was that it couldn't support it. And that's why we had to try and work around it.
Okay.
But we did ask that question. It did come up, yes.
Supervisor Kelly?
I'm just curious, does Family Promise work with the aged out foster children as well?
So we have, but I mean, we actually really, I mean, we see it here and there, but they are usually in touch with a social worker already, and they have specific programs for that. So we've seen it before, definitely, and we would be obviously more than happy to start to help them find housing. I guess, yes, the short answer is yes, we do, we would. I guess I don't see it super commonly, but we would. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Supervisor Conrad?
Yeah, I'm just curious, with this plan, do you think 100% of the current needs would be met, or is there a gap? Or especially with the increased need during the COVID times, or what's your projection for meeting the needs of the community?
I feel like this project would meet the needs of the community. I mean, we've seen, huge increases in the need in both family and single, and having a one true hub for singles and families, and obviously expanding on that family space, I think that would truly meet the need 100%.
Okay, current need, what about future needs? What about potential for, do you want the numbers to potentially increase, especially with economic status of the country changing, right?
I mean, I think we're definitely keeping that in mind with the amount of apartments we have, factored into the build right now, and the amount of rooms we have, the eight rooms for the families. So I think we're keeping that in mind. I mean, there's no telling what the future holds, but I think that we definitely have factored that in, because we have seen increases each year. So
with this plan, there's room for growth.
We kind of are looking at it for growth also. And when we actually have our architect, we'll be firming things up with that. But the other piece of it is we do have a local hotel we do have hotel vouchers. So if we do have an overflow, we can work with that, where we can set them up there. And that does help us greatly. So that's a real opportunity for us too. And that that helps in overflow situations. If it's an extremely cold winter, we might have extra walk-in people that come in.
Hot summer.
So, those are kinds of things that we look at also. There's also local landlords that work with Family Promise. So when we are placing someone that can now move on, there are local landlords that assist with that and help them too, and take the people in. So we have some outreach places that we've been working with.
Excellent, thank you.
Supervisor Visbali?
Just another question is, during the construction, is there a plan for placement of these people?
Yeah, we are working right now with Promise Center. That will eventually be sold. But we're hoping we can work with inside there and use the apartments that we have upstairs, and then that shelter that we have down. We don't want any displacement. In discussions in the past, when we've talked to people, we've talked about, they have dividers, construction dividers apparently, that they can put up so that we can keep working and not have to shift people around. So yeah, we've really looked at that and don't want that to happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I could just add to that too, and it truly is a goal of ours to avoid residential displacement, because that creates a whole nother set of regulations through CDBG if there is any residential displacement.
Okay.
So we will not have any residential displacement.
And we looked at that.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
And then one other thing, somebody was talking, when we were talking about the $1 million that our board has set aside, we have begun talking fundraising also, and our executive director has been working with grant people to get more funds, and we are working on a line of credit. So we just want to keep this going, but yes, we have actually set aside by board resolution that money.
Supervisor Bossert?
So I want to go back to the land, the footprint. So, again, 5-6 years ago, when we talked about this, we had a footprint, and I think the idea was that that was going to be the footprint, that it wasn't going to expand at all. And we gave you that land. So now we're looking at a possibility of more land. And obviously, you guys are a very worthy organization, but in our community, there's lots of worthy organizations. And if one worthy organization's being given something and then being given more, and other organizations aren't being given anything, it gets a little bit tricky for us as the county to explain that. Have you looked at, how do we bridge that gap?
And I'll build on that a little bit more.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've been party to these discussions all along. And initially it was, well, we want more land, and we said, no, you can do it with the land you have. So I was surprised to see you talking about more land today. I don't think you can assume it's a rubber stamp if you think you need more land.
No, we did not
It's a noble
assume that.
cause, but I hope you can do it on the land we've already given you.
And if I can just add, just to give you some insight into the conversations we've been having, Family Promise is aware that it is not a rubber stamp, and that, we're unclear because we haven't been able to present to you guys this information of where you'll be. So I anticipate either we will negotiate something on the current footprint, or if there is a request for land to the north or the west, that we would present to this board what that land is appraised at, and let the county board determine if they do indeed want to sell or give the land to Family Promise and make that decision here. So I say that to let you know that will be something that will be coming forward to you, and a decision that you'll need to make if it is determined that it is a dead end, 100% a dead end to keep the current footprint.
And we've all discussed that too.
Supervisor Kelly.
And building on that, I can't think of a more worthy organization with a proven track record in our community for helping our homeless. Right now, I hear a truck parking lot and a cornfield. Well, to me, it seems like better utilization of our services and our lands are to take care of the people. That's what we're here doing. So should it come to that, I will definitely be an open ear to how we can proceed. Thank you.
Any more discussion? Okay. Next on line. Do we have anybody registered?
No. If I could just add to that discussion about the land. One thing I want to stress to the board is that we are on a very, no pressure, we're on a very tight timeline. And so something that might take normally more discussion about the land, that conversation might need to be expedited because we have to start construction by October 31st. And so I'm certainly not pressuring or encouraging reckless decisions or taking into consideration other needs in the community. I just want to present to you that the timeline is very, very tight. And what will happen is if we don't keep to the timeline that CDBG has presented to us and that we've gotten approved, then Family Promise is at risk of losing the $2 million. And there is no opportunity to go back to CDBG and ask for that money because it has to be returned to HUD. They're under a timeline too. And so the $2 million that we're asking CDBG for is all they have left. So again, that's just information to the board that it is a very tight timeline. Applications are due tomorrow, or our application is due tomorrow. At the latest, I can submit it Tuesday. We plan on bidding the project and beginning in August, awarding in late September, and constructing in October. And so there is urgency to this issue, this application. So I just wanted to provide you that information. And if there were no other questions, there's an opportunity for additional input on community development needs within the community by either the board or any citizens in attendance. which
Any
they are
other
not.
citizens that wish to speak? Anyone on the board?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to, in regards to that timeline, I would implore the chair to make sure that we do everything that we can to be reasonable to Family Promise and ensuring that that timeline goes through.
I assure you.
I hope that the board will join up. If it takes special meetings or something, I hope the board will join me in making sure that that happens.
Witness this meeting today.
Thank you.
Supervisor Schleif, this is, or Chair Schleif, this is Supervisor Gallitz. I'm not sure if this question is for the actual resolution, because there's language that talks specifically about the county being responsible for the actual construction timeline and project. So is that reserved for that, or can that be addressed here?
No, we'll wait for the resolution for that.
Thank you.
So, if there's nothing else from the public, we'll close the public hearing. And this meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Please be aware, we'll roll right into the next meeting immediately, so. All right, so I'll call this meeting to order. The next meeting, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance again.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Again, this meeting was posted in accordance with proper procedures. So we'll roll right into consideration and reading of resolutions and ordinances. A is Resolution 18. I look for a motion and a second before we discuss. Supervisor Vespalek, Supervisor Bosser. Wants to speak to this? Supervisor Bosser.
So while we have the question about expanding the property, I would still encourage us to vote for this tonight to initiate the process of getting that grant. And then we'll figure out the property stuff over the next month. So that's my thought.
Sounds appropriate. Anyone else? Supervisor Gallitz, was your question having to do with the next resolution more?
Yes, because I believe that specifically calls out responsibility for construction.
Okay. So with no other comments and discussion, we'll vote. Votes by all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll move on to Resolution 19. Look for a motion and a second. Supervisor John. A second. Supervisor Vespalek. Discussion? Now you can go, Mr. Brian.
Thank you. So who is going to be managing that responsibility or accountable for the project timeline and deliverable, the construction? It says Washington County be responsible.
That is correct. So right now we have a team of folks from Washington County and working in partnership with a team from Family Promise. on this project to get this far and to continue with the timeline. Right now, Matt Furno, as you can guess, is the lead sort of project manager on this, and I am working alongside him from Washington County. We're also working with our procurement office, our county attorney's office, our Scott Schmidt from DPW, I'm not sure what his exact title is. And so, so there is a group or a team that's working on this, and we are going to be sort of holding the feet to the fire and managing that timeline. It's important to know that the requirement of CDBG is that the county is the applicant. We are the only entity that can apply for this. So Family Promise did approach us and request us to apply on their behalf, and as good partners in the community, we agreed to do that with the understanding the timeline is very tight, and we have to be meeting the timeline every step of the way to be able to be shovel ready by the end of October. Right now, because a lot of the requirements for funding and retaining of the architect and that sort of thing are on Family Promise, we are working on finalizing an MOU. There is a draft right now with the county attorney's office. And so we're working on that outlines the responsibility of the county and the responsibility of Family Promise in this partnership. So I'll leave it at that and see if there's additional questions.
Does that answer your question, Supervisor Gallitz?
It does. I guess I'm just trying to make sure that, we're not on the hook for anything unforeseen, because we are by vote going to be responsible for that project timeline.
There's been a whole lot of negotiating to make that happen. So right now we feel comfortable. Any other discussion? If not, we'll go for a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, July 13th. We're adjourned.
Great. Can I also?
Probably not, but let's see. We did have one of those migrants.